Folks, everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, good morning.
Excellent day. All right. The same old gang here. God bless you. All right.
You're the gangsters.
Love here. Okay.
Check.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Okay,
Can you
thank
hear
you.
me now? I was going to say, I see that there's a couple finals that have been completed. So I saw yours, Yasmin. I actually graded yours and forgot to hit save. So I'll have to remember all those wonderful comments I shared with you.
Oh, no. Okay. That's all right.
All right, so we've got Yasmin, we got there. We've got Unisol, we've got PB, we've got Matt King, and we've got Eamon here. So first off, welcome and thanks for being a part of all this. So where should we start? Yasmin, you want to start since you're the farthest away here, I think.
Yeah, I was just saying to the boys we had daylight savings, so it's 5 in the morning here. So I'm just starting with my coffee. Okay, where do I want to start? Yes, I do. So I guess now I'm realizing that I need a team to make things happen, but I'm finding myself still at the start where I still have to do everything myself. So I guess what I can say now is that I'm aware that I need to recruit that team, but I'm in a position where I have to still do things on my own. For example, in my little final exam thing, I put maybe I will go out. The biggest challenge I see is getting the word out there. So trying to contact blogs, trying to contact other media outlets. And I said, okay, maybe I need to hire a publicist. And then I thought, no, I would try and do it myself first before I get a publicist involved. So then I started questioning myself, well, am I actually not applying anything I learned, or is it the right thing to start doing these things yourself? And then once you get some momentum, start recruiting that team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with regard to the publicist, one of the things we talked about in that marketing and promotion section was, no matter who your publicist is, they need a steady supply of stuff to talk about, right? And so it sounds to me like you're just starting to put together your stuff, right? Things that would be worthy of a conversation. So you mentioned in your final that you've got a producer to do an EP for you, which is great. That's one of those people you need to help get the best performance out of yourself, right? And so focusing on that in the short term is really your best use of time, and that's kind of why, folks, I was asking, has your target changed a little bit, knowing what you know now versus, kind of more of the fairy tale version that you might have had when you started, right? So, once you have that done, then you've got something to talk about. But I don't think it would still be enough for you to go out and hire a publicist and justify the cost of it at this point, Yasmin, right? But once you do have some music, you could go out and send it to the A&R folks and do a little research online or whatever, and send it to all the A&R folks that work at the record labels in New Zealand, right? Because one of the most underestimated reasons why you need a label, or why it's great to have a label if you can get one. I'm talking about a fully functioning label, not some kid in his bedroom. Is that they address a lot of the I need some help part of this, publicists, radio promotion people, marketing people that can help put together all those pieces. So when you'd also made a comment in your final that this idea of being an indie versus we'll put some lights on here, being an indie versus just doing it with a label winds up being the toughest row to hoe, because you don't have the expertise, you really don't have the help, and you don't have the money. So it begs the question of, why anybody would go indie if they had a better option. So I think those are some things you can work on right now. Once you mentioned also that you wanted to start figuring out how to start gigging, right? So that's another thing to talk about, right? You talked about trying to find and recruit a young filmmaker to help you with your video. So when you have a video, it's another thing to talk about, right? So I think once you stack those things up and you start to get some positive reaction from them, then it makes more sense for a publicist. But in the short term, I say go finish up what you started there. Keep an eye out, for the people that might be able to help you, those managers. So, you could send notes to managers, and as we discussed in the manager section, more likely than not, those notes will go unanswered. But I know from my own experience that more often than not, I'll be contacted 2 or 3 or 4 times by somebody before it registers in some way. So one of the things I said in my note, and I'll say it in front of all the other folks, is you have a great attitude, Yasemin. You understand now, have a better understanding of what it's going to take for you to make some things happen. And I thought you very honestly and articulately, described what would happen if it doesn't work out, which is always, a possibility in the music business.
Mm-hmm.
And that, you would have learned from just going through the process and enjoying the ride while you're there. And that's the best attitude you can possibly have. It doesn't mean you're conceding defeat or that it's not going to happen. It just means that you recognize exactly what you're getting into. And I think that's good.
Thanks, Steve. I appreciate it. I was just going to say, in a final sort of thing, what I learned from the course is that the biggest thing for me, it demystified this whole music business thing. It's not, to me, I used to think it's a world removed from the everyday, but now I just really see it as just a business, and you can take the steps like you would applying for any job. Really, it just happens to be a creative role, and you now it's clearer. Now there's a pathway, and I can see that pathway, and I can sort of work through it. I know it works differently for different artists, but yeah, I just now don't think it's just this fairy kind of la la land. It's a business, and I understand it better. So thanks so much for this course.
I appreciate that. You don't know how much that makes me feel good, and because it's just a business that that if we're lucky enough to be able to do something we love for a business, it's amazing. I'll tell you a story yesterday. It's Masters Week here in golf world, right? So yesterday I had a chance to go out and play some golf with one of my buddies who's been on our web show, Tom Mackay, who signed some big acts, and you should go check out his interview. But also we had a chance to play with Alex Lifeson. Anybody here know who Alex Lifeson is? God, you're also young.
Absolutely. It's Rush.
There you go, Rush. Okay, so Alex is he's now 61 years old, and he's been in that band for 46 years, right? Only they had one original drummer when they were teenagers who's out and nobody remembers him, but 46 years in the band. They started when they were almost 15 years old. They had their first real success when they were 21, 22 years old in Canada, and then built that into a worldwide, business for themselves. And we talked about that whole idea of doing something you love and being able to turn it into a business. And he had some great comments, and hopefully I'll have him on the show to talk about it. But I think the punchline is that, it started with love and a passion for music. But as they became more successful and they started doing it more, they realized that it really is a business. It's what they do, and they were fortunate enough to find a manager very early on, a guy named Ray Daniels, who's literally been their manager from day one. So they've had the same manager for 40 plus years. He's been married to the same woman for 40 plus years. So I think the moral of the story is it takes time if you're serious. And obviously he's still doing it 46 years later because they had a lot of success, But I asked him, would you have done it, changed anything? He said, I would have done it for free for as long as I could have. I would never dreamed it could last 46 years, So, that's, you got the right attitude, Yasemin. So,
Thanks,
all right, we're going to move to our friend Mr. Uni V. How you doing, Uni?
Hey, what's going on, Steve?
Not much. How you doing,
I'm
bud?
good. Just working.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, the whole course it totally changed the way I look at things. I was actually changing my process in the process of going through the course, because like for like the last 10 years, I was kind of like the kid playing record label. But so I thought I can do it all, and over time, I developed a name for myself, but like at a crazy expense because I've had the publicists, I've had the record promoters, I've had the for college and commercial radio. I've done all that stuff, and it started out with the course when you were talking about True North, and I think that part of the course, that's when things started to change for me, and I started to say, I just want to be an artist because this is what I came in, loving to do. And I remember you made a comment. It's like, oh, some artists become good managers, and I started thinking, I was like, I never wanted to do this for anybody to begin with. And sometimes I get asked to do that, or I get asked to play promoter, because I do all those things too. And it's just because out of necessity, because I felt like I had no option.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I just want to focus on being an artist. So that's what I do now, and I'm loving it. I've been loving it. I've been doing it ever since the course began, and I just, I've been thinking about my production for my show. Got a show coming up in Baltimore this weekend, and yeah, just focus on that. And I'll let the rest of the stuff handle itself.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I remember looking at your first, if I'm thinking of the right person, that first final exam, which is, you guys probably figured out by now, was me just poking around in your head, and I think you had, in that first one, said, I want to be a producer, I want to be a this, and I wanted to be a that, I wanted to be a this. And I remember reading it thinking that I wish I were good enough to be great at 4 full-time gigs, right? And but the fact is, there probably are some people that can multitask in some meaningful way, but I've never been one of them. But but I think that notion of True North and figuring out what it is you're really all about is critical. And again, when I was playing golf yesterday with Alex, the great thing about golf for all you folks is if you ever take it up, you get this 4.5 hours of prime time with somebody. And I asked him, I said, how important, Alex, was, assuming, that you guys obviously all had talent and so forth, how important was a great attitude? And he said, our band has always had a great attitude, right? And that's so important. And I think part of it, fundamental to it, is really being honest with yourself and saying, what do I really want to be great at? And if you can simplify that and actually be great at that, then maybe you take on something else, because the people that have run successful labels, by and large, are not trying to play artists. And they're artists with labels, but those are vanity labels where somebody gives them a label and gets, you can be a label. And you hear about it all the time with successful artists, and now they can go out and sign other people. But it's pretty rare that you find artists that can play record exec, because they kind of are two competing headspaces, one more inspirational and emotional and one much more tactical and clinical, and tactical and clinical don't go great with creation and emotion and capturing all those things. So, there's a few that can do it, but in general, I think you're better off figuring out what you want to do, and I'm glad that, I bet you wish for $99 you could have gone back and watched this 10 years ago.
Yeah. I wish a lot of things are accessible now. So, but I'll take it, move forward. So.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I put a lot more money back in my pocket.
Good. Well, there's 2 ways to get the money. Keep it from leaving your pocket, and find some ways to put it in your pocket.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 things that I've managed to multitask at. I've early on, I figured out the connection between what comes and what stays is important.
Yep.
So, all right, let's move over to France. God, I love the way that sounds. There you are, Mr. PB from France. How you doing, my friend?
I'm very great, very great. I feel way more educated. So what I've learned was the dream it, do it part, and you don't ask, you don't get. This is really what that's my sentence. That's my motto now. I see my friends say, you don't ask, you don't get. So from that, I started to network with people. And firstly, I'm gonna move to the UK.
Moving.
So
all right.
Yeah, I'm gonna Yeah, because US, you got New York and LA, and in Europe you get London, so got to get closer to London. So I won't be in London directly because it's quite expensive. I will go to Brighton, but I'm trying to connect with people there. I met some people, I emailed them, so I'm starting to asking questions to professionals to see how it gets. And anyway, the other thing I've learned is the fuselage, the preparation part, because I had one plan and I said that's it or nothing. And actually, over the course of the 9 weeks, I've changed everything, everything. So I know now I have to adapt and be smart and also get the money.
Yeah.
Get the money.
Well,
Yeah, that's great.
good. Well, you know what? It's funny speaking of plans because I've scribbled a million plans on a piece of paper, and and plans are great because they provide you some starting point, right? And if when you start to go through a plan and start to break down the big stuff, which is always easier for me to identify the big stuff. But if you're really going to execute a plan, then you have to start getting into the 50 steps that make up step one, right? And I think that's where things can change. And I'll tell you this about the music business. People used to ask me all the time when I was talking with a record company or whoever, they would say, we need this to happen. And before they would finish, I'd go, what's the drop dead date? What's the drop dead date? And they go, Rennie, why are you always trying to figure out how to do things at the last minute? And I think the answer is because things in the music business are moving so fast and without rhyme or reason so often that I learned over time that having a plan and getting married to the plan when things were changing before your eyes wasn't conviction, it was stupidity, right? So,
Yeah.
So I learned to pull the trigger, if you will, at the very last minute. But I think in going through that whole idea, that plan, and I was given to overthinking stuff a lot too, but I think going through all the permutations of the plan in your head and accepting what you just said, that you got to have a plan, you want to have conviction about the plan, but if things start to change, you need to be able to adapt pretty quickly, right? And that is the state of being in the music business. What's working today, good chance it won't be working tomorrow, right? Something that you tried today and thought didn't work might have just been looking for better timing and lighting, and then it does work, right? That great story of Nate Ruess and the song "Headlights" with Eminem was a perfect example. I tell that story a million times because it was such a wonderful example of a great idea, the same song, the same this, never quite got it right, then a little bit different look than he had in mind, a little bit different timing and lighting, and all of a sudden you have some success. So good stuff, and I want to thank you, PB, for being a part of it. Let me ask you one final question. When I was asking about that big target, I suspect everybody's big target is probably similar to where it was, but it's that idea of figuring out what you're going to do tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day that keeps you at it. And I think when you put that stuff down and write it down on a piece of paper, whether you're a note taker on Word or if you looked at my desk, I got 50 notes around here that I have to gather together at the end of each week and put them in there. It's a way for you to keep score and to be honest with yourself about whether you're actually doing the things that it takes to succeed. And so be honest with yourself about it, because that's what will get you to the place where, God forbid that it doesn't work out. There's so much comfort in knowing that you set a target, you did everything you could to make it happen, and that if life was as simple as rewarding good work and diligence and all that, God, it would be perfect. But sometimes life doesn't work that way. But I'm convinced that the lessons you learn from going through that process serve you well somewhere in your life that you might not even be thinking about today.
Yeah, really. And I think
there you have it. All right, well, thank you very much. Okay, now to Matt King from Los Angeles. There he is, back in. Unmute. There you go. How you doing, Mr. King?
I'm great, Renman. How are you?
Good.
Great to see all you guys. Yeah, my question is, Or thoughts is, first of all, the class has been fantastic, and I've actually been taking from the page and actually just getting out in the field over the last few weeks in particular, which has been really cool. So I appreciate the knowledge. So my question is, I'm actually in the music business, but it's kind of like we've done a little bit of a build it and they will come philosophy. And the reality is it's built, but you still got to get out in the field as far as, so this week's subject of networking, for example, and then also identifying potential partners. Our company's at a stage where we're just now starting to do marketing.
Tell us what you do.
We're kind of like the Netflix of music in a nutshell. We have concert films and documentaries that we distribute, and we have licensing deals in place with all the record labels and such. But the real key component in my mind, in our mind, is that, you know, it's kind of like the old MTV model. You know, it's one thing to have something built like a Netflix, but to actually have the artists, and ironically you bring up Alex Lifeson, which is great, because our company, for example, is launching something in the next couple weeks with Rush.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, really cool, for all their concert and documentary titles, and it's their 40th anniversary, as you know. So that's kind of like a first step in doing the artist marketing, and we actually kind of got in touch with them through their attorney as opposed to their manager.
Okay, it works.
Yeah, it works, but the manager would have been a much, you know, it's just better for communications, you know, because I have a couple relationships, for example, with other artist managers, and it's just always, you know, you're really talking more to the artist in that case. Yes. So my thoughts are kind of, I've been going out and doing a lot of networking, but it really is, it's just like the Wild West. I mean, you go out and you're kind of like, well, I went to a couple music events, for example, and you're really just sort of like in this sea of people trying to identify like who's who, as opposed to it having any kind of smart business control. So my question is there people, places, and things, like spots, like kind of even more like during the daytime hours, because it's one thing to go to a show at midnight, you know, or 10 o'clock at night. These guys don't want to talk about at business at 10 o'clock at night, whether you're backstage or not. And so that's kind of the question, or is there spots, like sites that you could recommend where you'd be able to identify specific managers? Or
well, okay. So if you're talking about how to identify specific managers, right? Are you familiar with Polestar?
Yeah.
Polestar puts out a directory every year of managers, agents, and artists, and so forth. And I think it's $200 or $300. I'm not certain of what it is, but they keep it pretty up to speed on who the managers are, right? And so that might guys are in the business of keeping track of concerts and so forth. So they tend to have a group of managers and players that they kind of keep track of in the sense that their bands are working and so forth, right? So I think that would be a great place to start, you know, for a directory, if you will, of managers, right? As far as industry events go, I'm still not quite certain about exactly what you're doing, you know, but there's tons of industry type events, you know, out there, you know, probably more than is necessary in some ways, right? But those are great places, in a sense, to go and be surrounded with people that are all qualified somewhat about what's in the business. That said, the more successful those conferences are, the more difficult it is to have anything more than an exchange of cards and so forth, because having spoken on a number of these things over the years, what typically happens is you got a couple hundred people out there, you got 5 or 6 panelists all trying to show you how smart they are, and then as soon as the panel's over, unless you're just a complete wanker, you know, you'll have 15 or 20 people around you, right, that want to talk to you, right? And so if you're like me, I like to try to at least engage with everybody a little bit, you know, but it's difficult to have a substantive conversation. And so if you can get a card or something. That's, I mean, it's an expensive way to get somebody's card, but at least you have that opportunity to say, hey, Steve, or so-and-so, I met you at the Papa the Bing and the Pop, and I wanted to follow up, and here's what I'm doing, right? And I think it's really frustrating for people because they want to believe, I got this thing I'm working on, it's important, and how come this person doesn't get it? Or why aren't they giving me the time? But the reality is they've got things that are important to them just like you've got yours, right? So how you break through that is you keep asking, you keep, being professional, but you get to a point where it gets to yes or no, right? So when you're writing to those people, you have to tell them who you are, tell them a little background about it, and ask the question. I want to talk to you about this, or I want to. Don't say, well, what do you think about this? That's too tough an answer. You got to be specific about what you're asking. So if it's Yasemin and she's sending her tape out, hey, I just did this CD, blah, blah, this is what I'm about. Here's my website where you can check out more. And I'd like to talk to you about, because I'd like to sign with your record label. You give them the punchline, right? And I say this because we're going through the same thing now in a way with our course where we've got folks like yourselves that have found value in it and enjoy what it's all about. They like the opportunity to communicate and stuff. But I'm having to go out and make our case just like a band. Would you be interested? Here, let me tell you about my course. Let me tell you why, and all of that stuff. So we're all in the same place, whether you're a band, whether you're a business, whether you're, my passion, which is to try to take this online mentoring thing and turn it into enough of a business that I can continue to do it in a way that works financially for everybody. So I don't know if that answers your question, but the main thing is you just got to keep going out there, Matt. You're a personable guy. You're a smart person. You got to be relentless, because only the relentless ones that are just crazy enough to keep coming back to the window in the face of no's are the ones that get anywhere. Superman's not flying through the window going, let me make your day and buy your company for $10 million. That's not how it happens, That's this fairy tale thing. So.
Awesome. Thanks, Renman.
So keep banging away. All right, Christopher. All right, Christopher there. Our artist turned manager. How you feeling about that this week, Christopher?
I'm feeling great. It's a whole lot harder work, but it's more rewarding, I guess I would say. It's a very interesting journey going from Luke Skywalker to Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. I got an email from Christopher, and I won't say anything if you don't want me to, but you had a situation with an artist you were working with, and you and I had traded some emails about kind of getting to the bottom of what everybody's commitment level was. Is that something you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah.
Well, tell the story a little bit, because I think it's a good lesson for everybody here.
Well, let me start out by I watched Steve's course, the original course he had on YouTube, and I devoured it. And when I was making this decision of whether I wanted to do it, and one of the things that one of the major lessons that you teach, Steve, is dream it, then do it, and then don't listen to the whispers, listen to the screams, and if you don't ask, you don't get. So I had an opportunity to work with an artist, and she fit all three of those criteria, and we sat down, and I said, I'm new at this, and I'm willing to give it a try, and I've got some ideas as far as where you can go as an artist in your development and how I can help you. And I said, let's just kind of start our relationship, and let me show you what I can do. Well, within a week, I had her signed to one of the major booking agencies here in Nashville, which I would say in a normal situation, I would have proved my worth right there. But she's had some history with major labels here in Nashville, and major management and booking agencies. So, she was she was ecstatic that that happened, but as our relationship started going on, and it's all fine and well, it's like, hey, handshake, let me show you what I can do, but it's been 3 months now, and now there's real money offers starting to come in, so we need to sit down and have a clear idea of where our relationship lies. And at first it was, well, how about, you're new and maybe 15%, which, by the way, is standard, is a little too much for a new manager. So I was like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it for 15%. Well, what about if we partner up with another management company? Okay, no problem. Within a week, I talked to two of the most experienced managers in town, and one of them wanted to sit down and have a meeting. So we went to the meeting, and now they're considering it. So I bring that to them. Well, okay, well, great. Let's see what they say. And then it was like, well, if they decide to do it, then we'll sign something formal. And then money started coming in, and it was like, well, now we need to sit down and talk, because the money that's coming in, I was the one that I brought you that booking agency, and that's where that revenue stream's coming from. And they decided not to go with the major management company, and then they're like, well, we don't really know who they are, so we're not going to go that route. But now we don't want to do anything formal. So I said, okay, well, I sent them a proposal stating that I was open to a handshake deal, but to do that in good faith, I needed full 15% across the board. And the next day, her entertainment attorney emailed me and was like, we suggest you relax your services.
Yeah.
So basically, every suggestion or opportunity that they suggested, I not only acquiesced, but I delivered. And it was just kind of like, well, now he's taking away every one of our protests, and now we're just gonna have to leave him. So
how did that feel? Like a kick in the balls?
Yeah, but
yes, I mean,
I also looked at it as it's much better that it happened now than a year from now. And also, I was presented with the opportunity to nurture a great relationship with that booking agency that I didn't have before.
That's the right attitude, Christopher. I think for everybody here. And by the way, I know how that must feel. Kira goes through the same thing here. This kind of chicken and the egg of how do you get experience, by doing, and going out and working, but at the same time for your own well-being, you have to put value on what it is you're doing. And I learned early in my career, I should probably print up a T-shirt for this one, that too often in the music business, willingness gets mistaken for weakness.
Right.
And if you're going to be a successful manager, you have to start by showing conviction on your own account before you can demonstrate it on an artist account. And if it turns out the artists and so often is the case, the attorneys, which I'll just bitch a little bit about the attorneys, who spend an hour with an artist and all of a sudden the artist treats their word like it's Moses coming down from the mountain, right?
And that's exactly what's going on with this.
Oh, sure. Trust me, I've seen this. Kira, does that sound familiar?
Very familiar.
Yeah, okay. I gave Kira the same advice. She hated me, and then it happened. But she's going to be a better manager for it because if you do and don't get because somebody kept you from it, you got to end that one quickly. Because what happens is you become the person that can be fucked with. Pardon my French again. Maybe one day PB is going to tell me how to say that in French. Because I don't speak much French. Parlez-vous? No. But you got to hang in there, and you'll find some act that your experience level will be enough to keep them in the saddle, and if you make a commitment to keep getting smarter by asking questions. You asked me the questions, I told you the answers I sent, I thought, oh, this guy's going to fucking hate me, But you did the right thing, and you'll find some act that will reward it. Maybe you'll be like Nicky Berger, who found a way to stay. His experience and enthusiasm level grew faster than the band's career, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so he managed to stay in there. And so I'm proud of you for doing that, because it showed me a real manager's instinct. Because so many times when you're working on behalf of an artist, the only thing people understand is, we're not doing that. And they think you're bullshitting, and then they watch you do this. And then if they really want it, they go, whoa, 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 wait! And then you come back and say, are we doing this, or are we not doing this? Because in the music business and in life, there's only two actionable answers. Yes and no. And maybe I'll get paid. Maybe I got news for you. Maybe it's a waste of fucking time.
Right, and honestly, that the last proposal I sent, the good faith email, was really a test for me. Okay, it was like, all right, if you don't want anything formal, I'm willing to do that. That was to see if they were even considering paying me and considering me for that position seriously in the first place. And if I knew it was like, all right, at the very end, this is a very artist, entertainment lawyer heavy-sided deal where they can walk away. I put in there in the proposal, anytime you're done with my services, 30-day written notice, and you can walk away. If they weren't willing to do that, then I knew for a fact that they were never even considering it in the first deal. It was more of this kid's hungry, and he's got the passion. If he does come up with anything, great, and we'll take it and move on. Yeah. And that's really it. They showed their cards right there. Well,
you correctly sniffed that one out, and you made the right decision, in my opinion. And because there's lots of big managers, that are on a handshake deal. It didn't necessarily start that way, but over time, it's just a handshake deal. But if you're not, for artists, Yasemin, when you find your great manager, if you don't believe in your heart of hearts that you're acting as partners, even though technically in the eyes of the law that's not the case, or contractually speaking, if you don't look across that table and think that's your partner, then you don't have the right manager. And I'll tell you, as a manager, if you can't look across that table and the artist doesn't think you are an absolutely crucial piece of it, get out.
Right.
Save yourself the grief and find somebody with talent and the right attitude. You see, we always come back to that attitude again, right? And, if the artist starts talking about your commission before there's a dime on the table, I just exit the building right there. We're not done. Because if I deliver, I get, remember the artist management arithmetic, no money for artists, no money for manager. And it blows my mind how many people will sit there and negotiate when zero is on the table, right? They get all tough guy with you, and you go, now look, if there was $1 million on the table, and you say, hey kid, how about you just take a $100 on this? You might take that, or you might make some adjustments. But you did the right thing, and you passed the first test of management. Is that you said, okay, fair enough, let's move on.
Well, and I have to say that it was a big part of watching your course and watching you. That allowed me to do that, because I can't say that, let's say that this was the only thing that I had, that I wouldn't have gone for it. But after watching your course and reminding me of those big picture ideals and no bullshitting and fuck the gatekeepers, and that's what led me to the position I have now with the management company I work with now. And it was all because you gave me the right mindset. And when I sat down with my boss Arliss, and we manage Craig Wayne Boyd, who just won NBC's The Voice. So he's dealing with some big stuff, and he's bringing on this kid, but it's because I had the right mindset. And it's because of your course and the things that you reminded me of, the things that got me into music in the first place that I've forgotten about through all the BS and all the losses and just the craziness. So I have to thank you, because and that's the whole thing, is like, that's the whole reason I came back and bought this course again after watching the free course, was because I will always come back to this as a reference. This is now a textbook on the shelf for me.
You made my day with that. Well, we're going to keep the textbook fresh and keep the right voices in there, but you did the right thing. Now to my friend from England. Drum roll, please. Eamon, wake up. All right. early in the morning, dude. You look like you just woke up, and it's fucking what? 6
Me?
dinner time. Yeah.
Why? Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. You don't like my new haircut, then?
Yes. How's it over in Blighty? It looks like we have a little sun coming in that window.
It always does look like that, but
Okay.
I mean, I don't think I need to prove it by showing you out the window. It's just not great.
Fair enough. Eamon? Jack,
Can you hear me?
You were breaking up there a little bit, Eamon.
All right, sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to say to Chris, like, I'm sorry to hear about that. I mean, honestly, we've had things happen, but in a different context, the artist and blah blah blah. And yours sounds really a bit more high level than us. But I just want to say, like, Ren, to you and to Chris, like, I'm sorry to hear about it, Chris. It really sucks. But I really found the same thing last summer when we thought we had a record deal. And we really did. And it sounds like Chris really thought he had an artist as well. And I just want to say that, honestly, I think your mentality and big picture thing, Ren, really, really got us through it. I really, honestly, and I mean that because
Totally agree.
It's an expectation hangover, isn't it? Which I think is quite a good term for it. And you feel like crap, and it's how you rebound. And the way that me and my bandmate Ryan look at it these days is we're doing so many things and getting our shit together in so many ways that we didn't have together. Like, that record deal would have come too early for us, with no doubt. And right now we're like, oh, we're so much better off for it. And that's obviously down to fate. They didn't take us on, but God, man, Ren, if you didn't help so much with that. So I just want to say, like, I'm glad that Chris had a similar thing, because for me it's been identical. Like, I listened to, also I want to say with what Chris said, which she found as a real compliment, I say the same thing. Man, I ripped all your lessons and half of your interviews onto my iPod, you know. I whacked it off YouTube. I listened to them on drives, you know. And when the course became available, like, I was like, well, this is going to be good. But I was also like, I owe the guy, you know, like, I'm not going to get this, even if it's the same videos I've already got on my iPod, the same thing. I was like, man, you know. So I just want to say I'm a similar place to Chris, and, you know, for me it really, honestly, I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate that. At some point, you know, when we were filming it, Cody will probably laugh back there. We started recreating the original ones, and how many did we do, Cody? We did like the first two. 4. The first two, was it 4 sections we did?
4 videos.
Oh, 4 videos, and then one Friday afternoon, I told Code, you know, hey, how about we just take a break and shoot it this way? You know, come on, man, we're on a roll, and Cody, to his credit, grudgingly, you know, or Cody's figured out now. If I say it once, smile. If I say it twice, grin. If I say it 3 times, I mean it. Okay, and so we did it, and Cody. A-beat it with some of his friends around the bar, what I call the fireside chat approach versus the wild, fucking crazy, you know, wacky professor version. And so I'm glad you liked it, you know. But and also it speaks to that whole plan thing. You have a plan, then you look at it and you go, this plan blows. And so we changed that. But it makes me feel really good, folks. To hear your comments, and I'm writing them down here, you know, because you know, when I started to do this whole thing, you know, so much of this information's out there, right? And so much of, you know, here's what a publishing deal is, and this is what this person does, or this is what that person does. But the thing that I kept coming back to myself, and I didn't really think it was worth anything in the beginning. I thought it was just my own kooky look on it. But it's this attitude. It's the attitude is everything, and I see it not just in the music business. I see it in some of my friends who are in the sports world, but I see it friends of mine that are in businesses 100 miles removed from the record business. You know, people that do something have a different attitude versus the people that just think about it and talk themselves out of it, or happy to sit on the sidelines and tell Matt King or PB or Univ Saul what he's doing wrong, right? Or what they would have done. And it's editorial with no conscience. It's editorial with no consequence, right? And so, you know, I can't tell you how happy I am to hear that those big picture ideas that I've learned the hard way, you know, in some cases, and learned the best way through mentors, um, get you guys fired up, because I am absolutely convinced at the top levels, talent is a given. I can tell you from my own experience, great attitude is not a given. And I've watched a million great artists, talented people, succumb to bad attitude in one way or another. And you can think of, big, all the, Amy Winehouse, unbelievable talent. What killed her in the end? Bad attitude, all of those things. And so good to hear that. What's your next 30 days look like, Eamon? I'm going to go back to everybody to ask them what they're working on the next month. What's one right in front of you, and what are you doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow at 6 a.m. I'm flying from London Heathrow to Newark Airport. We booked a US tour, and we've got about 28 shows, 4.5 weeks or so. So we're almost. That was the bit that makes us pat myself on the back. It's the fact that we managed to do that day by day. I mean, I can't even do that in England half the time, honestly.
Amazing.
But yeah, honestly, yeah. So we're doing that, and it's going to be an awesome experience. It's going to be so eye-opening. It's going to be the difference between dreaming and doing, because we've never done a tour that long, let alone, and we're going to be so face-to-face in a lot of house shows. We're going to be so, it will stick or it won't, and we think it will, because we have confidence, and people want us there because they booked us and stuff. So I think it should be really awesome, but it will be so face-to-face. It will be so, I mean, like, we're getting by on, just, donations, t-shirt sales, stuff like that. So it's like we can really see how it works, build really grassroots fans, like people who really care about us as people as well, which obviously is so important these days. It's going to be awesome. Anyway, yeah, so that's what I'm doing. And also that's a consequence of us just going, well, we got rejected by this company, and you know what? The barrier was that we're not in the US, so you know what? We're going to go to it.
I fucking love that, man, so much I can't even tell you. By the way, I'll predict that there will be stories for a lifetime in there, and we expect you to be doing many selfies and updates across America, even though you're only getting halfway across, or maybe even a third of the way across, And next time you'll figure out how to start your tour on the West Coast, dude. All right.
We will.
So, all right.
Question then quickly. Sorry.
All right.
Just a quick one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Well, my question is, because obviously we're doing this quite big thing that does help the conversation, does help our story, blah, blah, blah. I really want to know, I mean, it's easier when you're starting a relationship or talking to someone to go, we've done this, we've done that, do you want to sign us, do you want to, But with existing relationships, like the one, especially I'm talking about this label, because I think the hardest thing is to get someone to care or pay attention in the first place. Once you have someone who's listened to your record and goes, I really like this and I want to put it out, and then the barriers, like, us being a UK band was explicitly mentioned, which I completely understand. We've kind of overcoming that barrier in a way, we're really doing it out there and blah, blah, blah. But my point is, the biggest barrier is getting that initial people to hear it and go, I like it and I want to do something. We've now had them make a conscious decision of no, because you're a UK artist, because blah, blah, blah. They might have their own reason, they're not telling us, but I guarantee that's a huge part to play for them. I want to know if we're reigniting the conversation and we want them to look at us properly and go, oh shit, okay, maybe that barrier is not there, maybe we'll sign them. Because they've already made a really conscious decision and it's a no right now. How would you play it so that we can change the narrative? And
you mentioned some words here. You're in a constant state of telling your story. When you get a manager, your manager becomes the person that's always telling the story. That's what I was telling Yasamine earlier. If you only ever have one story and they say no, then you're done, right? But if you keep doing it, you have a constant supply of stories, right? And the fact of the matter is that bands get better if they stay at it, okay? The Black Keys, I talk about them all the time. They put out, what, 6 or 7 records now? Does that mean the first 3 records sucked, or the first record sucked, and the second? I don't know the reason, but I bet by staying at it for 15 years, I bet you if I listened to their last record for the first record, I would hear hints of where they are today on the first record in the full Monty here on the last one. So to your question, You've now got a great story to tell. We're going across America. 28 dates of story, if you ask me. 28 dates to tell the picture and to make people feel like they're out there with you, right? So it could be as simple as that. Does that label have a Twitter account?
Yeah.
Probably. Does Kevin Lyman have a Twitter account? Abso-fucking-lutely. Do other pop promoters and punk promoters? Abso-fucking-lutely, right? So you just keep showing up and you keep writing music, and this is why for brand new bands, right, versus more established bands, putting out an album means you got to waste 14 songs. Just keep putting out music, right? And every time you put out a new piece of music, you send it to those people because, I just got a note I saw come up here from Aaron Bay Shook, who was the guy that signed Bruno Mars, okay? It was no, yes, big, huge star. Now I'm out playing fucking golf yesterday, and Tom McKay's going, God, I can't get that Uptown Funk out of my fucking head, right? Well, for 10 years, nobody could get Bruno Mars in their head, much less out, right? So the punchline is, if you're growing as an artist, if you're growing as a business for Matt, if you're growing as a business for what I'm doing now, right, you'll be getting better. Because if you stop getting better, it's adios amigo, right? You're out. So how long, what your level of stamina is, how long you can stay in it and hear no, hoping in listening and waiting and looking for that yes, I can't answer that for people. People ask me, like, well, how long should I give it? I don't know. I don't know what your stamina is. I don't know how much gas you got in your tank. That's a personal thing, right? But if you keep doing the right things and you keep recalibrating your plan, you keep making sure that you have a new story to tell every time you talk to a person, I'll tell you this about relationships. There have been relationships that I've had that started as friendly, this and that, never really meant much, and then 10 years later, the right timing and lighting and opportunity came on, bang, off to the races, right? That's the nature of the beast. That's why for Matt, it's so important to keep networking. You never know who or where that yes is going to come from, but I absolutely assure one freaking thing. If you stop asking, they ain't calling you, okay? That's my experience, okay? Nobody ever called me out of the blue, go, hey, Rennie, I got this great idea for you to make millions of dollars on. More often than not, it was, oh, yeah, I couldn't get Incubus and I couldn't get him an agent for the first year. I went to every one of my big-time buddies. Every one of them, they all blew me off. They didn't blow me off. Yeah, I'm not feeling it. Wow. And went with the guy that wasn't at the big agency. And then when those big agencies started calling, I go, hey, you missed your opportunity. I got a guy. We're done, right? And so those things happen, right? So stay at it as long as you believe, right? And if you don't believe, impossible for you to get anybody else to believe.
So true. So true.
So,
Ren, you're awesome. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. All right. Any other questions here, folks? And I want to say this. You all have my email address. If you don't write it down, it may change from steve@renmanagement.com if I can get our developer on the phone, Cody. Fucking knucklehead. To steve@renman. But right now, it's steve@renmanagement.com. And I want to encourage all of you, right, to stay in touch, right, and keep me apprised of where you're at. And while I've said to a million people, I will never, it's been suggested to me a million times that I should do what a lot of these internet clowns do, which is hold out some hope that I'm going to dial you in with all my buddies. That may or may not be the case. But if I see the progress and I see something there, right, I will quietly, if I'm talking to somebody, if I'm playing golf with somebody, if something rings my bell, because I'm not going to be a manager anymore, I'll try to make a recommendation, or I'll try to put you in touch with them in a way that preserves my relationship with these folks, but gives you a chance to tell your story, and so I encourage you to do that, and I hope you'll take me up on that.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
If you ever come to New Zealand, let me know. And I'll definitely try and come.
I will let you know. I just wish it wasn't so freaking far.
It is. It takes 2 days. It does take 2 days to get here, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I used to worry about how a plane would stay in the air for 14 hours, and that was before I ever had to think about, well, maybe the pilot doesn't want it to stay in the air.
Oh,
Oof.
don't
Crazy.
even start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. One more question, Christopher?
Yeah, it's not really a question. It's a comment for Matt, because his was more networking, and I've actually wanted to bring this up the last 2 weeks. Matt, there is an amazing book that has helped me on my power networking, and this is for all of y'all. And Steve might know of it, but it's written by Dale Carnegie, and it's called How to Make Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
The last month I've been reading this book, it has changed my networking skills beyond belief. Do you know anything about that book?
I have read that book way back when, and like I say, the successful folks have a similar mentality. They can all write and say it in a different way. Dale Carnegie is obviously much more, dignified than my approach, but it's the same thing. You gotta ask, you gotta go out there and be relentless, and just remember, it only takes a couple great yeses to change everything, right? And it's why the no's got to bounce off you, and you just got to be relentless is what it comes down to, as long as you can keep the gas in your tank. And I just know from my own experience that it's funny. I was going to tell you, I'm playing golf yesterday with this guy, Tom Mackay, who wanted to be a golf pro. I told him, I said, dude, we have the same story. Everybody thinks I wanted to be a manager. I wanted to be a golf pro. And I did it and did it and did it and did it, and it just didn't work out. But all those lessons I learned about showing up and getting up at 5 in the morning, Yasemin, they all paid off, but not quite what I had in mind. And I'm convinced that if people are serious about it, the same can happen for them. Maybe not exactly what you want, but something that can provide you great, satisfaction with your life, which is, at the end of the day, folks, is what it's all about. We get one lap here, and then we're done. So I said, live it up.
Sure.
So, unfortunately for all you folks, you got a lot more time to get around the track.
And thank you, Christopher, for that recommendation. I ironically was just reading a book that referenced to that book, so it'll absolutely open that thing up. In fact, Renman, if you remember, about week 4 or 5, we had brought up books and reading suggestions. So thank you, Chris.
Well, I'll give you one suggestion here. This is going to be wacky, but it's Masters. It's the golf tournament starts off the season here. A book that's not about the music business, but it's about that mindset. And it's called Golf is Not a Game of Perfect by Dr. Bob Rotella, who's a sports psychologist who works with a lot of the top athletes. Business, he'd have been a great manager too, because it's all about look and shoot, pick your target, commit, and you'll read that book and you'll hear bits and pieces of the Renman course in there too. And it's all about committing and just letting it go and staying out of your own way, and more importantly, accepting, it's either going to happen or it's not. I'm looking for yes, I'm looking for no. Kind of simplifying the things that keep you up at night, right? You live, you die. Boom. Life is actually simpler than we make it sometimes.
Just enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride, because that's the part that you can control. Is right your attitude. The rest is. It was funny. I was talking with Alex yesterday. Again, we were talking about this whole thing about. It was in the golfing context, right? If you're a golfer, you can control your grip and the way you stand up to the ball and everything. So good players all have good grips and they have good setups and everything. And I made comment to Alex. I said, "You got a great grip and setup." And he goes, "Yeah, sometimes I forget about it." I said, "I never forget the setup, because it's like the music business, Alex. If you can't control the shit you can control, what chance do you have with the wild shit, right?" So, it's like it's little stuff. So anyway. All right, folks. Well, that's our last one. I'll tell you what we're thinking about, because as my whole thing here evolves. This Google Hangout thing, which was not intended to be part of the original course was more for me to get a feel of what people are thinking. I think we may continue to do these on Mondays, right? And since you guys are now, you know, as long as we continue to do it as part of just the regular course, you guys are on the guest list permanently, and so we'll send that list out. So if you want to come back, you know, when you see another Google Hangout, we'll obviously send you out emails ahead of time.
Sure.
And you're welcome. You're welcome to come back as charter members of the Renman Country Club.
All right.
Thank
Right.
you, Steve. Appreciate
All right.
it.
All right. Take care, folks. Good luck to you out
All
there.
right. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much.
Good luck, my friends.
Bye bye now.
Bye.
Bye.